Hey, Asher Kids, and welcome back. Today we are talking about the full moon in Leo. So, no, I did not disappear. Yesterday we had some technical difficulties. So, this is a little bit behind schedule, but today we're going to get into this full moon that is taking place on the 27th of February. So, up on the screen, I have the chart for this full moon in Leo. And this is a full moon that is taking place in the Purva Phalguni nakshatra. And so this nakshatra becomes all about pleasure, relaxation, creativity. This is very much a nakshatra of enjoyment and very artistic, very creative, very much about luxury. This is such a relaxing energy when we think about this particular nakshatra that is here in Leo. Now, this is opposing the sun, of course, which is over in Shadabasha nakshatra of Aquarius. But this is not only the sun, but remember that we have that combust Venus. So here we also have Venus making the opposition over to the moon. And this is going to be very interesting because we have so much Venusian qualities that are taking place here with this luxurious, laid back, artistic nakshatra here of Purva Phalguni here in Leo and Venus coming into the mixture. There's a lot here in terms of relaxing, taking a break, coming into meditation, especially as we have this combust Venus that is over in Shadabasha. And so there's a lot here in terms of the karmic principles and the karmic laws of your duty, your responsibility, but learning how to take a break, learning how to come into this place of peace and meditation, because this is really going to rev us up and give us the energy to move ahead here as we are shifting ahead. So, this is really getting you ready for this forward movement, this energy, this burst of life that is coming around the corner here as we are coming here into this full moon. Where we're releasing, we're letting go. This is a great time for this. Of course, that full moon is a release point where we get to this fullness, this culmination. But here, especially with this Nakshatra activation and this Venus aspect, there is a lot here in terms of needing to take a break, needing to relax, needing to take that time to yourself, especially depending on where this is in your personal chart. So we'll talk more about that as we get into each of the zodiac signs and how this is affecting you personally. Now, the other thing that is happening is that Mars is making an aspect over to this moon in Leo. So remember that Mars is also going to move here on the 21st, along with Venus, into the sign of Taurus. And so Mars is here making the aspect over to this moon in Leo. And Mars is sitting over with Rahu. Remember that Rahu is going to be a very important part of this transit of Mars in Taurus, where there's a lot here in terms of karmic principles, of your responsibility, your work ethic, your duty, of staying committed to the task and moving ahead. And so there's a lot here in terms of taking a break, knowing when to sit in silence and to sit with yourself through this process, but also remaining committed to the task, remaining to tap into those creative energies and to use it to harness it. Mars and Taurus is quite the creative force, especially as we get further into the Rohini Nakshatra. But as of now, sitting in this Kritika Nakshatra, there's still this discipline, this work ethic, this dedication that needs to come into all of this with that Shadabasha in the combust Venus and with this Kritika Nakshatra, the work, the responsibility, along with the break. And so there's this dynamic with this full moon that really has to do with your work life, but then also learning how to rest as well. And so, sort of integrating these two ideas of rest and work becomes very important here as we are going through this full moon experience. And this is really a point where some of you may have felt very pressured, very overworked. And this can be a time here of relaxing and taking that break to recharge so that you have the energy to stay committed to the task. There is something big here about those of you who are workaholics, who are trying to really push ahead and to make that initiative where are you burning yourself out? Are you not taking enough rest? Where you can actually stay motivated and on task with your duties and responsibilities. And so Dharma becomes a huge part of this, along with this aspect here of relaxation. So let's go ahead and move here into the signs. And so this is for those of you who have an Aries ascendant or an Aries moon. And this is going to be Mars in your second house. Remember that Mars was initially in that first house and has moved over to your second house. If you want to know more about how Mars is affecting you, make sure to check out that video on Mars in Taurus, this transit coming up here on the 21st of February. But as of the 27th of February, we have this full moon here, again in Purva Phalguni, that is in that opposition over to the Sun and a combust Venus and Shadabasha, along with this Mars and Kritika. So this is quite an interesting combination for those of you with an Aries ascendant or Aries moon, where this really becomes about you really coming into your creative energy, using your creativity. This can be a time where you feel more inclined towards your creative side and your different skill sets, using those abilities, tapping into those abilities. Remember that the moon is representing the mind. And so there really becomes a strong focus here in terms of your creative efforts. And especially for those of you who came into this new moon in Capricorn, where there has been a lot here in terms of putting in the work, putting in the effort towards your career and your responsibilities. This can really show you some really great results. Again, with that combust Venus that is up in your 11th house, a lot of gains that can be received through this, where you're now seeing the fruits of your efforts, of your work. And so a lot of this creative force, this effort is really paying off for those of you with Aries. If not, then this means that this is really time for you to tap into those creative skills, because this is really going to give you a tremendous amount of gains and achievement and support for some of you, where this is a really great time to work on that project that you put off, a really great time to put the effort in on those skills that you've been holding off. And so, yes, this is a full moon where this is time for relaxation, but look at where this moon is at in your fifth house, where you can really cultivate those creative skills. And with Mars making the aspect from your second house, this is a really great time to use your speaking abilities. So, again, for some of you, some projects that you put off, expressing this, sharing this. For some of you, this can also mean a project that involves speaking. And so there may be some presentation, some writing, skill that needs to be honed in on here as far as a project or a task moving forward. Really going towards your hopes and dreams and the things that you want to achieve here is really going to give some great results in terms of speculative business and creativity, ultimately, for those of you with an Aries ascendant or Aries moon. So let's go ahead and shift here over into our next sign of Taurus. So, for those of you with a Taurus ascendant or Taurus moon, this is going to be Mars in your first house, where there's a lot of willpower, a lot of determination for those of you, where you're really feeling that strength of Mars, and especially in this Kritika Nakshatra, where there is this discipline, this commitment, this ability to cut through the nonsense and really get tasks done and get to the bottom of things. And so this gives a very direct and straightforward ability to really hone in on that discipline and getting tasks done and being very straightforward and direct. So, this is kind of a new energy for many of you where you have sort of felt this stirring in the subconscious a little bit, but now really bringing this out to the surface where there is a lot of strength and ability for you moving forward. Now, we do have this full moon in your fourth house, which is a great position here where this really is a great time for you to relax and to enjoy the benefits that combust Venus up in your 10th house, really bringing forth some great results in terms of wealth, the values, the gains. Remember that that 10th house is your position, your status. And with the sun there and with Venus, this is quite an interesting combination. Again, combust Venus can really give some interesting results as Venus really does not like being in a combustion, not to mention that Venus is the enemy of the sun. However, Venus is quite comfortable here in the sign of Aquarius, where there is a lot of gains and benefits that can come from this, but making sure that everything that you're doing is ethical and moral. If you've been doing things that are unethical, this can really take a turn and give you some really bad results in terms of your status and reputation. But ultimately, for many of you, this is a time of relaxation. This is a time of enjoying your benefits of being with your family, being at home, really being in this place of peace and having that peaceful state of mind, knowing and being content in that you were able to achieve these accomplishments and reach this level of status. So let's go ahead and shift forward here to those of you with Gemini. And so those who have a Gemini moon or Gemini ascendant, this will be a full moon in your third house. And this is a great position here where this is really similar to Aries tapping into those creative talents and skill sets. With this moon being in such a creative nakshatra here in this full moon where you can really come into the fullness of your talents and your self-expression and utilize this to really bring you some great results. That combust Venus sitting over in your ninth house, be careful of that. That can really bring out some issues with ego is term in terms of expressing your beliefs, expressing your opinions. You want to be cautious of how you're coming across in terms of your communication and your self-expression. But really, ultimately, this is a time of honing in on those creative talents and skill sets and sharing that where you can really benefit off of teaching and sharing and guiding and communicating these different thoughts and ideas that you've collected here. Really a great time for sharing your creativity. And especially with Mars being back in your 12th house, really tapping into and honing in on those creative skills coming from your subconscious, your imagination, your dream world, right? Where this really becomes a great time to tap into that and to stay disciplined in your spiritual commitments as well. That 12th house could make you want to come into a place of isolation and to really tap into your imagination and creativity. But ultimately, with Mars there in the 12th house, especially in the Kritika Nakshatra, this really becomes a time of tapping into your spiritual routines, meditation, really sitting in peace and silence and connecting into your subconscious. This is a great time for this. So, really, some retreat, some reflection, some inner work can really take place here for those of you with a Gemini ascendant or Gemini moon. So, let's go ahead and shift forward here to those of you with a Cancer ascendant or Cancer moon. And so this is going to be a full moon in your second house. And so this is quite an interesting position here where you really can receive quite a great deal of wealth. And for some of you, even this could be just a time to relax and connect with the family and to really go down a route of nostalgia, really connecting back with your family roots and what it was like growing up in your early childhood. So some of you may be feeling this where you want to tap back into those previous experiences growing up in your childhood. And there may be some work here to do as we have a combust Venus in your eighth house, where there can be a lot of conflicts and crisis that can come up from your past, right? From the things that you've experienced. And you want to be cautious here in terms of blowing money, in terms of spending too much. This Purva Phalguni Nakshatra is very luxurious. It's very relaxed. And it is here in the sign of Leo where you might feel this desire to really splurge or spend or really have some pleasure and enjoyment in your life. But with that Sun combust Venus in your eighth house, this really can bring about some danger in terms of losing things, in terms of going through some crisis in your life. So you want to be a bit cautious here in terms of your mindset. Are you focused too heavily on spending or building or planning things that can really ultimately affect your bank account? And especially with Mars in the 11th house for you as well, where this can really be a time of wanting to be very aggressive in terms of your gains, in terms of your wealth. And so you want to save here. That is ultimately the main thing in terms of this full moon. You really want to save and store. Remember, this is a full moon. This is about culmination. And so this is really a great time for you to save your money, to save your wealth, to store up for the future, for your plans for the future and where you're headed in terms of this full moon. So let's go ahead and shift ahead to the sign of Leo. So this is for those of you with a Leo moon or Leo ascendant. And this is going to be a full moon in your first house. Very auspicious. This is a great time for you to relax and enjoy the comforts coming into your life. You want to be cautious, though, of relationships. There is something big to say about this combust Venus that is in your seventh house, where there can be a lot of ego problems, a lot of conflict here in your actual relationships, where you may be very tired and fed up with some of the issues in terms of authority, in terms of conflicts that can arise, where you can very much be very aggressive and hostile in your relationships. And so you want to be careful about how you're asserting your authority in your relationships. And especially depending on where you have the sun in your chart, right? You want to be cautious that the ego isn't blowing out of proportion here for those of you with a Leo ascendant. And of course, this is a great time for business, taking the initiative in your career life with that Mars up in your 10th house. Again, a lot of focus here on self, on your status, on building yourself up, but being very cautious here of how you are approaching relationships is a huge thing that you want to be cautious of. From that 10th house, Mars is aspecting your first house, where the ego, the aggressiveness can really blow out of proportion. And so that is something that you want to be very cautious of. So let's go ahead and shift forward to those of you with a Virgo ascendant or Virgo moon. So for those with a Virgo ascendant or Virgo moon, this is going to be a full moon back in your 12th house, where this is all about relaxation, right? This is the moon in a sign of relaxation, in a nakshatra of relaxation, where this is really a time to be isolated, to relax, to recharge. For those of you with a Virgo moon or Virgo ascendant, many of you have been pushing yourselves, pushing really hard with this eighth house activation of Mars, where you have been really pushing to do your best, to work hard, to overcome conflicts. And now Mars has ultimately moved to your ninth house, where this is about learning higher concepts. This is about your education. This is about your creativity, about expanding yourself. And so now, after all of this work and effort that you put in through the crisis, through the conflicts, through the difficulties, through the stress, this is really ultimately rewarding you, where you can gain a lot in terms of wisdom and knowledge. And you've gained a lot from those experiences that you had through that Mars and Aries transit. And so this really goes hand in hand with that, with this full moon, where this is time for you to just relax. Many of you, there's an urge here with the sun and a combust Venus to try to get involved with conflicts and finding solutions. But for many of you, this is actually a time to retreat. And so you want to be careful of any sort of conflicts that can come up in terms of your relationships, your coworkers, right? Your partnerships, all of this. You want to stay clear of those conflicts and disagreements. This is really not a time to get involved with conflicts. It's a time for you to sit back and to recharge, because ultimately this can affect your health if you're trying to push into areas that it isn't time for you to associate with, right? So, karmically speaking, this is really a time to just go into this deep contemplation and to really clear yourself, to really relax and recharge. This is going to give you the energy and stamina for moving ahead here through this transit. So let's go ahead and shift forward to those of you with a Libra moon or Libra ascendant. So for those who have a Libra moon or Libra ascendant, this is a full moon in your 11th house. Really great position here where you can gain a lot. Now, you want to be careful though, because through this transit, there is something to say here about getting into conflicts in terms of expressing yourself, in terms of expressing your thoughts and your opinions and getting that out into the world. This can really create some issues here in terms of your life moving forward. So you really want to be cautious of how you are actually expressing yourself, expressing your thoughts and ideas. This can really cause some unexpected conflicts in your life. Mars is really activating that eighth house, where a lot of ups and downs and conflicts can arise here. A lot of stress can come up, a lot of health ailments can come up. And look at Mars aspecting that moon in the 11th house, where are you expressing your ideas, your hopes, your dreams in a way that is sort of stirring up conflict and difficulties? That combust Venus in your fifth house, really making some conflict potentially arise within your relationships. So make sure that you are keeping everything cool, that you are focusing on your hopes and dreams and not getting distracted by these little things that can really bring up conflicts within your life. So let's go ahead and take a look at the sign of Scorpio. So this is for those of you with a Scorpio moon or Scorpio ascendant. And you have a full moon happening in your 10th house. This is very auspicious, where you can gain a lot of reputation, a lot of authority, a lot of dignity at this time, which you've been working really hard towards, right? There's been a lot of striving with Mars that's been transiting for this time in your sixth house, where you've undergone a lot of conflicts and a lot of work that you had to really push through. Now, with Mars in your seventh house, really giving that opportunity to work with others, to partner up, to get some attention from others, to receive opportunities from people, with Mars activating that seventh house. Now, with the Sun and a combust Venus in the fourth house, you want to be cautious. There can be some conflicts within the home, where there can be distance or conflict between you and the mother, or you and the home environment, where some things can be stirred up here. And this could even be a time where you feel a bit lazy or lethargic with that combust Venus. Really, a time where you want to rest and recharge and make sure that everything is in the proper balance in your home life. So let's go ahead and push ahead to those of you with a Sagittarius moon or Sagittarius ascendant. So, for those who have a Sagittarius ascendant or Sagittarius moon, this is going to be a full moon back in your ninth house. And this is very auspicious for you. Your ninth house is that original house of Sagittarius, where this can be a great time for you to share your thoughts and ideas with a full moon to really express and share those thoughts and visions and philosophies that you've gained. You want to be careful though, because you have a combust Venus in your third house. And so conflicts can arise when expressing your thoughts, where you can really get into arguments and disagreements. This can come up where you get very tired and lose your temper, where there can be some conflicts with authority, conflicts with your counselors, your guides. So you want to watch out for that as we're coming into this full moon, making sure that you're respectful, making sure that you're being understanding and patient through this process. Now, Mars is hanging out there in your sixth house. And so, again, a lot of conflicts can arise here, where this is Mars making an aspect over to that moon in your ninth house. And so a lot of issues can come up with your teachers, with your father, with those who are guiding and helping you at this time. You want to watch how you are communicating. Some of these things can come off as very aggressive, very straightforward, where there can be major conflicts and disagreements. So let's go ahead and shift ahead here into the sign of Capricorn. So, for those of you who have a Capricorn moon or Capricorn ascendant, this is for you, and you are having a full moon in your eighth house. So, this is an interesting placement here, where this really becomes about going deeper into your spirituality and really going through this internal process of transformation and growth. And this also becomes a great time for making money, making profit. Again, a lot of growth that can come through this process here. You have that Mars activating your fifth house, where there can be some risk taking that leads to some gains here. But you want to be cautious. Mars is very much in Taurus, where it becomes about your desires, where it becomes about the material pleasures. And so for some of you, you can become overindulgent. You can get wrapped up in these material gains here. So you want to really use that Kritika Nakshatra to really stay disciplined and motivated in your task at this time. And with that combust Venus that is in your second house, being careful of how you're speaking. A lot of conflicts can come up here, similar to Sagittarius, where there's some harsh speech. There are some arguments, some disagreements here. This combust Venus really takes away those qualities of the peace, of the balance, the agreement, the negotiation, where there can be a little bit of a rivalry that can arise here. This can also make you very tired in your speech, where you may feel a bit lethargic. You may not feel like expressing and sharing things at this time. This is definitely a time where you also want to be careful of spending. Venus is a karka for wealth, and it is sitting there in your second house of wealth, where there can be some difficulties here in terms of burning or spending money, that Venus isn't behaving correctly in a combustion. So you want to watch out for that as well. Again, this could be a time where you can receive benefits by risk taking, but it's also a time where risk taking and overindulgence in risk taking can really lead you into moments of crisis and frustration. So you want to be careful of how you are going about things at this time. So let's go ahead and shift into the sign of Aquarius. So this is for those of you with an Aquarius moon or Aquarius ascendant. And so we have a full moon here in your seventh house, one of our Kendra houses. Again, very auspicious to have this full moon here, where you can really gain a lot from your relationships during this full moon. And so, for those of you who have been looking to find some closure, for those of you who have been looking to seal the deal on a relationship, some of these things can come through. And remember that that seventh house isn't just about marriage, right? It is also about business. It is also about dealing with other people in general. And so this can be about any sort of relationship where you're sealing the deal, you're finding closure, you're finding that deeper connection through this full moon. So a lot that you can gain here from your relationships. Now, you do have a combust Venus in your first house, so you want to be careful of ego. Venus is not operating properly, so this can really bring about some of the negative qualities of Venus here, where there can be some overindulgence, some over sexuality that's happening here with Venus in a combustion. So you want to really be careful of some of these stronger qualities that are coming out of Venus in your first. Because remember that anything in your first house becomes you, right? That first house is the house of self. And so this is really a time where you want to be careful of overindulging in the pleasures and comforts of life. That can really create some ego problems here, and especially with Mars in your fourth house, where you may feel more drawn to comfort and leisure and luxury during this time. So you want to be careful of how you're spending, of how you are really indulging into these things of pleasure and comfort, and really want to put more of the focus on your relationships, on your comfort. This can really bring you more satisfaction, as this is a full moon here in the Purva Phalguni Nakshatra. So let's go ahead and move forward to our last sign here, which is Pisces. So this is for those of you who have a Pisces moon or Pisces ascendant. So this is a full moon taking place in your sixth house. And so you want to be careful here of your health. Any sort of health complications can come to a completion here, a culmination, where you can see some health problems that are clearing up, but you can also see some health problems that you have been waiting to figure out or come to a conclusion about that are finally coming to that point of conclusion. And so you really want to be careful of how your health is at this time, and especially with this moon in Leo that is in such a luxurious and relaxed nakshatra, where this could be a time of getting involved in too much pleasure and enjoyment in your life and sort of losing track of things. This combust Venus sitting in your 12th house, where you can really fall into your imagination, where you can lose track of reality, and some mental disturbances can come up here, where there can be a lot of anxiety, a lot of worry, a lot of stress that can really drive the health to a point of damage. So you really want to be careful of how you are dealing with your health at this time. But this becomes a great time as far as dealing with conflicts, overcoming conflicts, with the full moon very powerful in this sixth house. And Mars sitting over there in your third house, this really becomes a great time to deal with the work, to use your ideas, to use your imagination, to use your skill sets to overcome some of the issues or challenges that you may have faced in the past, and really staying disciplined and committed to your business, to your task at hand. So that was your horoscope for the full moon in Leo, taking place here on February 27th of 2021. I hope you all enjoyed this. If you like this video, feel free to leave a like as well as a comment. If you're new to this channel, don't forget to hit the subscribe button along with the notification bell so that you don't miss up on any new content. That notification bell is very important. It keeps you updated on all the new things coming out on this channel. So make sure to hit that notification bell so you are updated when I am uploading. Also, if you're interested in learning more about Vedic astrology, there is a course available on the Facebook group Astrology Lessons with Daquan Jones and on Patreon, and all of that is down below in the description along with the comments. I will also keep you updated on when these classes will be available on Udemy as well. If you have any comments, any thoughts, anything that you'd like me to talk about as far as Vedic astrology, feel free to leave that down below in the comments section as well. I hope you all have a great day, and I will see you in the next video.